Assalamu alaikum. Hi, Oracle Reiki Spiritual Healer. And today we are talking about when God isolates you versus when a narcissist isolates you. And so, before we get into this story, I wanted to give you something that was really strange because I had to leave my last location because we had a white lady on the side of my car taking pictures of me. So I don't know what, that is about, but I have definitely had that in my life, and that's for another story. But let's get into our video for today. When you have God isolating you, then God is trying to show you the people in your life. He's trying to make you aware of the danger that is impending from these places and those people that he wants to show you. Whether he has isolated you from your family or friends or from society, this certain type of society. And from my understanding in this, then you will not only be isolated by God, but you will have to be humble until you get yourself out of that situation. In many cases, God is showing you that there is something going on in this area. He has highlighted these people or their behavior for a reason in order for you to move away from them and separate yourself from these types of attacks, these types of psychic attacks. And I say psychic attacks, and we want to understand that when a person wants to humble you, when a person is trying to isolate you, then many times they want to abuse you. They're trying to see how can they get you to themselves so that they can abuse you. And again, I have to always say this mostly happens with women. It can happen to men where a woman has isolated them from their family, from their friends, so that they can talk down to them, abuse them. But usually this happens with women, or it happens with very young men. So we have this understanding. Now, when a spiritual narcissist or a narcissist, a demonic person or a toxic person, we got someone blowing the horns. When they are trying to, send negative energy to you, when they want to humble you in front of other people, again, they are trying to attack you in some kind of way. They are trying to send a psychic attack, or they are trying to humble you and abuse you so that they can siphon your energy, so that they can control you and control the blessings upon your life. So I'm going to give you this example from my first husband. He had, a lot of female friends in this area. And, this area was known for having block parties. And, but what I understood was that these women were his friends. They were never my friends. So, one day we were having this block party. And so, he walked over to me on the porch and he was like, "Why you aren't over there with the women?" And I say, "Well, I can show you why, but, I'm going to tell you first, and then I'm going to show you. They don't want me to be around them." And so I could understand that they were isolating me on purpose, because for some reason they thought that it was going to bother me, when in fact, that type of isolation from them, I did not want to be a part of, them doing nothing, or them idolizing, people on the block, or, having parties or things of that nature. So I walked over towards, the crowd where these women were standing in a circle. And when I started to walk near them, the whole circle saw me coming, and they shifted up the hill. And it was like they were moving in unison together. And I was like, so I walked back to the porch, and, I told my first husband, so now you see why that, they don't want me to be there with them. They've isolated me, and they did this in order to humble me. And when I wasn't humble, when I could just go back to my life, when I was trying to introduce them at this time to the internet, I decided at that time that there isn't any help for these people. I could only, help their children. And at that time, I started to try and train the children for the generation of the internet, how to use the internet, what I already had in my house, teaching them, in my home. And eventually, that did not work either, because, as we understand, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Excuse me. So, with my first husband, when you are the type of human being that will allow someone to attack your wife, whether it is your family member, whether it is friends, and you're sitting there like she is supposed to defend herself, that, unless she goes through this type of humiliation for you, she doesn't really love you. And I wasn't going through any of that. I was finna go and leave. That is my, my first thought. That was my first thought. That the first thing, that I did not want to be like the women that he knew, because, they all had low self-esteem. They were waiting, or they were validated by a man. And I was validated and taught to validate by, what I could produce for myself. So we have these narcissists that will attack you and become abusive when you do not want to be a part of, what they think is cool, what they think is a part of the in crowd, what they think that you should like and want to be a part of them. When you are being isolated by a narcissist, by spiritual narcissists, and, I also want to, just add this in, that a lot of the females that he was dealing with, they were spiritual narcissists. A lot of them were going to, different places, in Macon, Georgia. They were going to, root workers. They were going to voodooists. They were going to Florida. So a lot of this is prevalent in the South. And so when you are around those types of people and they try to humble you, whether they are male or female, whether they are in your life or not, and they try to control your gifts, when they try to control the narrative that, either you're going to be like them or you're going to jail, or you're going to be like them, or we're going to, try to take your gifts. You have to constantly cleanse. You have to constantly sit up in the middle of the night and pray against these people, in that 3 to 5 a.m. period is the time that you will have to pray against those people who are trying to humble you, who are trying to send those psychic attacks, and those people who are trying to attack with violence, so that you have the clarity to see not only what they want, but their intentions. When you have cleansed this type of negative energy from your mind, body, and soul with the holy books, when you have cleansed it with the holy rituals, holy water, when you have cleansed yourself with, the intentions to do good to yourself and do right by others, then God will not allow you to stay around those people that they have exposed, those people who are out for your downfall. They want to, harm you. They want to make sure that you're in a humble state, so that they can siphon your energy, so that they can, take your gifts, your ideas. So, in this way, God has exposed these types of narcissists to you. God's isolation is something totally different than what the narcissist wants to do by humbling you in order to see if they can attack you with violence and abuse you. So I hope that you received this message. Please like, share, and subscribe to me over all of my platforms. You can book your life coaching sessions or your video chat sessions. Book your one-on-one consultations. Please like, share, and subscribe to me. You can also leave a comment or donate to my channel. I'm High Oracle, Reiki Spiritual Healer. Assalamu alaikum.